Welcome to another episode of Becca's Talking. Thank you for joining us. Thanks for being a PBL. I got Bruce Crawford here. We got some pretty interesting stuff about movies and that coming up in a second. But before we get to that, I want to talk to you about our sponsor, Havana Garage. I want to thank all the folks at Havana Garage. Have you been? Havana Garage is it's a unique establishment in Omaha. It's in the old market. You can't miss it there. It's in the old market. It's a place that, yes, they've got the humidor, big humidor with a great selection of cigars. They've got all your favorite cocktails, all your favorite whiskeys. But it's also just a nice little sort of a throwback atmosphere. Pictures of Sinatra and Dean Martin and Sammy Davis Jr. and the music, the people, it's just a great place to go. Whether you're getting ready for a night on the town, going down to a CHI concert, or you're a nice dinner in the old market, or maybe you're just looking for someplace for happy hour, or someplace just going trying to relax after a tough day, I recommend Havana Garage. Might see you there. Yeah, I see you there. Havana Garage in the old market. Tell them you heard about it on the Becca's Talking podcast. I said my guest is Bruce Crawford. Now, Bruce has been around for, 200-300 years? I mean,
at least. That's why my hair's all white.
Bruce is, how would you describe, what would be your job title?
A film historian.
A film historian.
Event producer.
Okay, a film historian and an event producer.
Yes. Title.
Yeah, you do some very interesting things to raise money for charities. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about some of these events.
Sure.
How did you get started doing this?
Well, back in 1992, a filmmaker is a hero of mine as a child, Ray Harryhausen, special effects genius. He did famous movies like Seventh Voyage of Sinbad, Jason the Argonauts, 1 Million Years BC with Raquel Welch.
Yeah.
What baby boomer doesn't remember that, right? And Clash of the Titans when he retired. There's classic films. I've always loved his work. And his Jules Verne movie, Mysterious Island, my favorite. And I wanted to honor him somehow back here. We've been friends since the late 70s. We'd correspond. I was a teenager and I connected with him. And long story short, 1992, he got the Oscar for Life Achievement and for his work. He's safely retired. He was no threat to the other competitors anymore. That's how political it is. But anyway, I went with him there to his award ceremony as a guest with him and his family. And I said, you got to come to Omaha sometime. I got to do something with you. He goes, well, I don't dance with the straw hat and cane, so what do you want me to do? I'll show a couple of your classic films and do a Q&A, have some fun with it, And at the time in Omaha, we had one of the last, now it's an empty, ridiculous, pathetic parking lot. It was the Indian Hills Theater. Remember that?
Yeah.
Giant theater built by Cooper Foundation in the early 60s. Had the largest Cinerama screen in the world here. 105 feet wide, 35 feet tall, and almost a horseshoe concave shape. It's like three-dimensional. It's just amazing.
It was an old-school movie theater.
Beautiful theater. Yeah. Gorgeous. And so I wanted to show his films one of the best films played there, the biggies, the real biggies. So I got my favorite of his, the Jules Verne movie, Mysterious Island, and his favorite of his career was Jason the Argonauts. So we did a double feature. I got him to come back to Omaha, flew him in from his home in London, and it was a big success. And the rest is history. That started the whole thing.
Okay, so did it start off as being a fundraiser, or did that sort of grow from there?
It kind of grew from there, really.
Yeah. Now, you said the politics, so he was no threat. What did you mean by that?
Well, because he was so ahead of his time. His films were very successful, but they weren't filmed in Hollywood. In Europe, he based himself out of London. So there's a lot of politics in that industry, a lot of jealousy.
Okay.
As you know, like probably in broadcasting, it's very similar, I'm sure. A lot of envy for success, and he was a genius. His work was ahead of its time.
Yeah, he was doing special effects when nobody else was.
His stop motion model's work is still, CGI still hasn't topped him. It's still amazing to look at. Yeah. Fun to watch.
Yeah. Matter of fact, I remember you brought him by the studio one day when he was in town for, it wasn't that, I don't think it was that event. It was
King Kong.
Event. Yeah, King Kong. You brought him in the studio, and he had the first digital film camera I'd seen.
Handheld digital camera.
Yeah, and it was like, wow, it was like, the technology is like, wow, really, yeah.
He recorded the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So now you've been doing this since what? 92.
32 years.
32 years you've been doing this. Yeah. And about what? Every year?
Twice a year.
Twice a year now you do an event.
Yes.
And you do it to raise money for some charity.
Different charities, yes.
Now I think by the time this podcast is actually released, your latest event will be done.
October 25th.
Which is American Werewolf in London.
Yes.
With David Naughton, right?
Star.
But you've done so many other films. You did Animal House.
50. I've done 50.
50 of these. Okay, so let's see. I'm trying to think of the ones that I've seen them there. Let's see, Animal House. You
John
did that.
Landis was here.
Yeah, and then you did Gregory Peck.
Mockingbird.
Mockingbird. Yeah, To Kill the Mockingbird. I mean, you've done. I've been to many of your events, and it is cool because they not only talked about the movie, which is a classic movie.
I always do classics.
You know, a classic movie, but then they go and they talk about what was going on behind the scenes.
How it was made.
How it was made.
Exactly.
Some of the stories about maybe some problems they had, maybe some of the
behind the
politics
scenes
involved.
stuff. Yeah, it's very interesting stuff.
It is very interesting, and you sell out of pretty much every event, right?
Close to, hope to.
Yeah. Where are they held?
For the last 3 years now, I've been doing with the Omaha Community Playhouse. We turned the stage into a movie theater, put in a 50-foot screen and full digital projection and 5.1 surround stereo. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
600 seats, so it's a big theater.
How did you get into this? I mean, were you just
That's how it happened.
Were you just like some nerdy kid that loved movies and trying to find a way to make this a living?
Well, I may have turned it into a career, but I kind of was able to go beyond the nerdy level. I was popular in school.
Yeah, well, I didn't mean that came across maybe a lot harsher than I meant for it to. You know,
most nerdy kids have thick glasses and never kiss a girl until they're 40. You know?
Yeah. So it came across harsher than I meant for it to. But I just meant,
techno geek, movie geek.
Movie geek. Okay, if you'll take the movie geek.
I was definitely a movie geek. Never a nerd, though.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I apologize for the comment. So you're just really involved with movies and loving the movies.
Yes, sir.
And you just found a way to...
My parents loved movies. Took me to movies when I was a kid. We went every weekend. I mean, we saw everything. Back in the 60s when I was a kid, we saw everything. Mm-hmm. You name it, we saw it.
Yeah.
So I grew up with this stuff. My parents are big movie fans.
Okay. All right.
Until they died.
And you've got an Academy Award.
It's just an honorary... It's a duplicate of Ray's Oscar.
But
it's a real Oscar, yeah.
It's a real Oscar.
Yeah.
It may be honorary, but it's still pretty darn cool.
It's a nice paperweight.
Yeah. And you've been able to meet so many of these stars. Now,
many.
How does this go about? How do you? I mean, do you find a star that's willing to talk about their movie and then get the movie? Do you get a movie and then say
the chicken or the egg? You're trying to say which comes first? It depends, Tom. Sometimes I have a film I want to do. I don't care who my guest is. I want to do it. And sometimes I get a guest. Whatever film they might like me to do, what do you like? Like Debbie Reynolds, when I brought her, she wanted Singing in the Rain, of course. That's her film. So it depends either chicken or the egg and which one comes first depends on the situation.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And like I said, David Naughton here with American Werewolf in London.
He's the star of the picture. Certainly.
Which is a great movie.
Great modern classic.
That's the thing, too, about a lot of these movies, how well they hold up.
Yes.
Because you run a risk sometimes with some of these older movies. Like The Exorcist, in my opinion, The Exorcist was a classic movie.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't hold up.
It does for me.
It doesn't really?
It still scares the crap out of me. It's
really?
a very, very disturbing movie.
To me, it just...
it's actually a very religious movie. Think about it.
Oh, I know.
Very spiritual.
Yeah, it is a very spiritual movie. But I guess the special effects and everything...
They're still pretty gross. They're graphically gross.
Yeah, the special effects don't maybe hold up the way that they used to.
I don't have to disagree with you politely. I think it still holds up very well for 50. It still scares the crap out of me.
Yeah.
I was like a teenager back then. I'm in my 60s. I was a teenager then. It still bothers me.
What movies do you like the best? You say it just scares you. Do you like the thrillers? Do you like...
Depends. Like Psycho is a 64-year-old film and it's still a brilliantly scary film.
Yeah. Because
of Bernard Herrmann's music mostly. That music makes you about jump out of your seat.
And you did Psycho too, yeah.
Yes, I did Janet Leigh here, yes.
Yeah.
Still holds up well.
Yeah. So you like the Hitchcock? And
of course, Hitchcock's always timeless.
Yeah. What about the comedies?
Well, I did It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. I had one of the last living comedians from Marvin Kaplan, the poor guy that has the hapless owner of that gas station that Jonathan Winters destroys.
Yeah.
He was my guest for that. That movie still makes me laugh.
Marvin Kaplan, boy, there's a name.
He was a funny guy.
Yeah.
Really nice man.
That's okay. So when these celebrities come in to do this, I mean, are they excited about it? Are they honored? I mean, how does it, for the most part?
They seem to enjoy it. I mean, I've had like 85 celebrity guests since 1992. They seem to enjoy it a lot.
Uh-huh.
Plus, our reputation after all these years is known to a lot of people in the industry I work with. So they know who we are.
Okay, so doing 2 of these events a year, you got to be doing something the rest of the year. What else does a film historian do?
Well, I speak at other engagements across the country. I go to Europe sometimes, host concerts, some film scores. I've been doing that for a long time, a guest speaker. And different conventions and film festivals I get invited to frequently. Turner Classic Movies had me as a guest. Ben Mankiewicz, who was my guest at my last event, who came back for Raiders of the Lost Ark for event number 50. He's like the face of TCM, Turner Classic Movies, which is they are the Rolls Royce of classic film.
Right.
And they kind of like knighted our events by having him come here and anoint us, you might say, with our 50th event since '92, which I did back in May of 2024. And that was, we showed Raiders of the Lost Ark with Steven Spielberg's permission. He said I said, can we do this for event number 50? He said, absolutely. He said he was thrilled we were doing it for event number 50, which is kind of neat coming from him, right? And so Ben Mankiewicz came out and spoke on his behalf and for TCM2 to acknowledge 50 events. It's a pretty monumental thing. Mm-hmm. Not 50 years, but 50 events. 32 years is still quite a long time.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, and the fact that they still have that same impact and the same success.
It's hard to believe, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, no, it's not hard to believe because you put out you put out a good product.
Thank you.
You put out a good product. Now, okay, like I said, by the time the podcast is out, the American Werewolf in London will have already been a success because as we speak, ticket sales have gone very well.
Yes, they have.
So are you working on the next one already?
I got May 17th held for the next, but I don't know what's going to be this far out. I have no idea. I might not know until like January, February, March of next year. Sometimes it's late.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's early. Sometimes it's late.
Is it tough getting the rights to these?
Not really. You got to pay a fee for it, of course.
Yeah.
Broadcasting rights, or public performance rights, I should say. But you don't rest on your laurels. But I feel good knowing that I have a reputation. A lot of people in Hollywood, they know what we do here. And they think it's good, or they wouldn't be here coming back. We would have such a good reputation if we didn't do a good job.
And I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, which you've already done a couple times.
Sorry about that.
No. I think that when you started doing these events,
mm-hmm.
it was long before what we see now with a lot of movies.
Oh, yeah.
Where like John Cleese goes out and he'll go and he tours with Monty Python movies.
They tour across the country.
Yeah, and I also know that Terry Ewell's with
Ella's with Princess Bride.
Princess Bride goes out and tours with the movie, and then
they go to different cities, and it's a whole tour, like a stage play tour.
Mel Brooks did a few of those too.
Yes,
I know back
exactly.
in the day. So,
but events we do are not tour related. They're
not.
They're one-offs.
But I'm just saying, was anybody doing this sort of thing before you started doing it?
Rarely. In Hollywood and in New York, certainly. At the Film Forum, at the AFI, American Cinematheque, and of course the Academy, that was very common. But in the Midwest, it's not very common.
You're right.
Not at all.
Okay, so you're the first one to basically take it out of the coasts.
Probably one of the first, not the first. But they had them in Chicago too.
All right, cool. So, where do you see? I mean, we talk about the glory days of Hollywood when there was glamour and glitz and the moguls who ran the studios,
right?
And I mean, and some of the stories in that of what that age of Hollywood. It's fascinating.
It is.
We don't live in that era anymore.
It's our 20th century culture and 21st century. It's part of our culture, a major part of our culture.
Yeah.
As much as any sports, really.
No. You're right. I mean, everybody has the movies they grew up with and everything. They go and see these movies, and it brings back memories.
Mm-hmm.
Brings back, people. The first date with their spouse. The first, the bunch of high school buddies going to go see.
Oh yeah.
Porky's 4 or whatever. I mean, the movies have have great memories in them, but back then they could control. They could control the actors. They could control the message and all that. It's a whole different world now in Hollywood, right? Where the studio moguls don't have the clout they used to have.
It's all independent now.
Yeah.
Independent.
And it's all streaming.
A lot of it is. Most of it is. That's where the money's at, too.
Yeah. Is there money in streaming?
Must be, because Netflix and all those others do gangbusters. But you still have to go to the movie theater to enjoy a real good movie. You want to see a great film, you want to see it on the big screen, especially if they're designed to be seen on a big screen. They're designed to look that way. They're not meant for a TV screen. Originally, they're meant to be seen as big a screen as you can get.
Well, and I guess that's sort of where the movies are going to now, for the most part at least, where you're not going to see as many like rom-coms. The rom-coms are going to be streaming, and the
epics and the adventures will be the big IMAX screen stuff.
Yeah.
Like Oppenheimer. Yeah. On the big screen, on IMAX, that was breathtaking. Man, that was something.
Yeah.
Did you see it?
I did see it. You
saw it on IMAX?
Yeah.
Wasn't that great?
Yeah. I also saw Jurassic Park on IMAX.
Wasn't that fun?
Oh, yeah.
See, they were designed to be seen on the big screen.
But yeah. Okay, a whole different story here. But I just, you mentioned IMAX. It always brings back this memory. So my oldest nephew, who lives in Arizona, and now, as a matter of fact, he just made me a great uncle about a month ago.
Wow.
But he was visiting one time, and he was 10 years old or something, 10 years old. And we went to the zoo, the IMAX theater there. Went to the zoo. They had a feature on the Anasazi Indians.
Oh, yeah.
And since he was from Arizona, I thought, this would be interesting, It talked about, his part of the country and all this. And the opening scene where these, Native American women down by the river, washing their clothes, and they weren't wearing clothes at the time they were washing them.
In IMAX, no less.
So I'm with a 10-year-old boy, and he's looking at like a 10-year-old breast,
10-foot tall breast.
Yeah, 10-foot tall breast. He's looking at that, and he's with his uncle, and it's like, but he doesn't know what he can do.
Education time.
Yeah, it was just so funny because he was like, ooh, and then he's like, well, look at this, I don't know,
I never saw nudity in IMAX before.
but IMAX is a
larger than life.
Yeah. Now, other technology though hasn't worked out all that well. I mean, they try the 3D, and occasionally maybe one will come out, but
they still do that.
But
they still do, yeah.
But they don't do it the way they used to, or at least
the 3D is easier to do on digital. It's much easier to do than when it was on film. Much easier to see. Much easier to watch. But IMAX is, you can't get that at home.
No.
That's why you go to the movies to see stuff you can't get at home. You want something on the biggest screen you can see. But the movie has to be designed for that. Like a romantic comedy doesn't need to be 10 stories tall.
Yeah.
Don't need that for a romantic comedy. For an epic or an adventure, it works well.
And that is it, because for the most part, where you mentioned Oppenheimer, which is sort of a
epic.
Yeah, it is epic, but it's also sort of an outlier. Because you take a look at the movies that are really, the big blockbuster movies now, the Marvel movies,
comic books. Oh,
the Marvel movies that have done so well. You look at what Barbie did, which again on a big screen, so much better than watching it on at home.
Even if you have a 65-inch flat screen, which I have, that's big for your home, but still doesn't compare to a 50-foot wide screen. There's no comparison.
And there's also the sense of community when you go to a movie.
Yes,
it's the whole ritual of it.
Especially a comedy or a scary film that people shake and they're scared together and they laugh together. It's funny. It's very communal, exactly.
But now with the streaming and everything,
in your home,
and not only the streaming, but even worse, the little 10-second, videos that are out there on Reels or on TikTok that people have just become so, enamored with. That sort of hurts the future of filmmaking, doesn't it?
It could, I suppose, in some ways, but you still have to go to the theater to see a great film to be seen on the big screen. It's got to be seen that way, because Oppenheimer would work on a TV screen. I'm sure it looks okay. It's a biography. But on the big screen, the IMAX, when that bomb blows up, my God, you're right there. Yeah. Can't get that at home.
Yeah. Yeah, matter of fact, I got to see it again. Oppenheimer is so complex.
It is. Brilliant film.
Yeah. And I used to live in Santa Fe and just outside of Los Alamos, so and I knew people whose parents were involved in the process. And so it is, as a history buff,
right.
I mean, that movie was just incredible.
Amazing. It is incredible. It changed the history of the world forever.
Oh, definitely.
We're living with it today.
Definitely. Any movies that are coming out now that you're looking forward to?
I really don't know what's coming up. I haven't seen anything new that catches my fancy.
So you don't really watch
a lot of new films, not really.
No.
I'm aware of them, but they're not my cup of tea. I'm not going to waste my time on them, especially the Marvel comic books. I'm just not into that.
Yeah.
I grew out of that when I was 12 years old.
Yeah, I have no interest in the Marvel comic book.
They're boring me spitless.
Yeah. If it's all going to be special effects and CGI, I'm not interested.
Boring.
Yeah. I'm not interested. I want a good plot line. I want a good story.
It's a human factor.
Yeah.
Humanity.
Yeah.
You got to have that.
I mean, Barbie had special effects and CGI, and quite honestly, I thought it was a very good movie. I thought
I haven't seen it yet.
You haven't seen it? I thought it was well written. It was funny. It was
It wasn't sexist against men.
It definitely had a pro-female point of view, but I enjoyed that movie, which I don't know what that says. Maybe
movies are all subjective, and it's all about entertainment. It's just entertainment. If you enjoy it, great. If you don't, then watch something else.
Yeah. Okay. So speaking of which, then if you don't enjoy it, what about this latest Francis Ford Coppola movie?
I've heard mixed reviews on it. Some people say it's unbearable. Other people say you got to watch it twice to really get it, and it's really impressive. Some impressive things in it overall, but not really worth watching, I guess.
Yeah.
How about you?
I've not seen it yet. No,
I haven't either. But I've heard people and friends I trust. But Coppola's a brilliant man. He made some great. Besides The Godfather, he made other great films like Apocalypse Now, and one of his favorite movies he ever made was The Black Stallion. That's Coppola. It's a beautiful movie. Yeah. Beautifully done.
Didn't he also do American Graffiti?
No, that was
that was Lucas.
George Lucas, yeah.
That was Lucas. That's right. Yeah, that was Lucas. Of course, then you talk about the streaming services, the series on the making of The Godfather.
Oh yeah.
Did you ever see that?
I heard about it, but I haven't seen it.
Oh yeah,
Is it good?
It was very good.
I did the Godfather event back in 2009, and for the first time in the history of the family, the Brando family came back for my event. They never made a public appearance before in their life till they came here. Isn't that hard to believe? I asked him, Miko, Karen, and Prudence Brando. His oldest son, Miko's wife, Karen, and Marlon's oldest grandchild, Prudence, came back for that. I asked him, why'd you decide to come? You always turn everybody else around the world. You turn them down. He said yes to me. He said, because you said they thought I was very sincere. We saw your website. You did some great stuff. And he said, it's my dad's hometown. So they came back for that. Isn't that cool?
That was very cool. And from what I recall, they really enjoyed Omaha, didn't they?
They loved it. Yeah, they did. And Mika was quite an interesting fellow, because him and his wife, Karen, his second wife, Karen, were married on Neverland Ranch. And the best man was Michael Jackson. They're very close to them.
It's got to be weird when your dad is Marlon Brando.
They were down-to-earth people, though. They're really down-to-earth people.
Yeah, how do you grow up in any kind of normalcy in that situation?
Miko said, he goes, I'll never forget, we were having dinner, he goes, I'll tell you what, you guys come to my dad's house when he was still alive. If you went to his house, you wouldn't even know what he did for a living by looking at his home. You wouldn't know what he did. He could be a plumber for all you knew. He didn't put nothing movie-related at all.
Really?
Nothing. Not a thing.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
And you also done some stuff with the Fonda family over the years, haven't you?
No, I haven't.
I thought you had Peter Fonda come back for something once. No, okay.
I haven't. I do the more difficult ones, like Fonda's been here many times, but getting the Brandos here was a real coup. It's just because they turned everybody down. I was so thrilled when they said yes. I could not believe they did. They did say yes. So what am I going to do? That now they're coming. What am I going to do?
How does that happen then? I mean, like you said, if you turn everybody else down, you just say, "Well, I got a little time to kill." Let them turn me down too. I mean, how do you make that happen?
It just happened. I can't explain it. I just thought I reached out to the family. I did my networking, found how to get a hold of Miko, and twisted his arm very politely. He said, "Because that's where my dad was born, so I'd love to come back." I was expecting a no because they turn everybody else down all the time, but they said yes to us because his mother, Marlon Brando's mother, Miko's grandmother, was one of the founders of the Omaha Playhouse, where I do my movie events now.
Right?
Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
Small world, isn't it?
Yeah, and of course, what was it? Marlon Brando's mother also taught Henry Fonda, or was a
Small World. Yeah. And Dorothy McGuire.
Both. That's the other thing about Omaha in general. I mean, you take a look at what for a town of this size, that is definitely non-Hollywood. We've had some incredible people.
But the state of Nebraska in general, not just Omaha.
Yeah.
Because look at the people. Like, of course, Carson is number one.
Sure, but then even like you're going with the old silent movies like Harold Lloyd.
Harold Lloyd, yes, but Johnny Carson is the most famous Nebraskan, probably.
Sure.
Even next to Brando and Fonda, I think Carson maybe towers over them actually because he had a bigger audience for 30 years.
And he's reached new people through YouTube and that.
Exactly.
I know that there's every now and then if I'm just bored, I'll get sucked into a Tonight Show rabbit hole of just going down old clips. Oh, Don Rickles, hey,
You knew Merrill Workhoven?
Yeah.
He was on the hired Johnny at the radio station WW. He hired him.
Right.
And you probably knew. Got my movie event started was my work on a public radio documentary I did on composer Bernard Herrmann. Remember I did that for NPR. Produced it at KIOS radio here in Omaha back in '88. Then it went nationwide and worldwide in the '90s. It just put me on the map. And it was it was broadcast several times here in Omaha and of course around the world. And one time Merrill Workhoven listened to it. He loved it because when he was a kid in the 30s, he listened to Orson Welles' radio broadcasts and such. And Mr. Herman wrote music for Orson Welles for Citizen Kane. Before that, he did the radio broadcasts, Playhouse Theater, Mercury Playhouse. And Merrill Workhoven called me. He goes, I love your documentary you did on Herman. He goes, that's fantastic. Because I loved his music since I was a kid on CBS Radio. Kind of helped me get into radio because he's an icon in radio here in Omaha. And then he invited me over to his house. He said, tell you what, Bruce, would you mind making a couple of cassette tape copies? This is back in 1992. Of your documentary for me. I'd like to have one for me and a friend. So I brought him over to his house. He showed me all his neat history of his radio work, pictures of him and Johnny Carson when Carson was like 20 years old. Really amazing stuff. And he showed me a car he had in his parking lot, in his driveway, that Carson bought for him. Because he drove out to California one time, his car blew out. So Carson bought him a new car. Because he owed him for getting him started in his career, actually. But in the long story short, I gave him the tapes, and he said, I'll give you a call in a few weeks. He said, okay, great. And he did call me about a month or two, more than a few, about a month or two later, he called me. He invited me back over to his house. It's over in Dundee area here in town. Neat old British kind of Tudor, brick style house, full of, you wouldn't believe all the stuff he had in that home, man. He was a pack rat. He had movie stuff, radio stuff, tons of his TV work he did. The guy had a long history. Anyway, he said, I'm getting a phone call here in about an hour. You mind just waiting here while I take the phone? He said, sure. And Johnny Carson called him. They talked about once a month, usually. He put me on the phone with her, so I got to talk to Carson briefly.
Oh, nice.
He said the second copy of the documentary on tape, he sent it to Carson to listen to. Carson listened. He's retired. He said, I had time to listen to it. It's 2.5 hours long. He said, that was a great show. You did a great job, Bruce. I said, thank you, Mr. Carson. What am I going to say to you?
Yeah.
I was floored. I had no idea that Mr. Werkhoven would do that. He's a really good man.
You mentioned Carson. I don't have many regrets in my broadcasting career.
Of course not.
One regret that I do have, though, is that I had the idea of Johnny Carson started off as an intern at KFAB.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody knows about this time at Channel 6.
And then WW Radio.
Yeah, and then Channel 6 and WW Radio. But as an intern in college, when KFAB was still in Lincoln,
right,
he was an intern at KFAB. So he had a connection with
Back
KFAB.
In the early 40s, wasn't it?
Yeah. And I always I thought, I wonder if he'd want to come on KFAB one more time for old time's sake.
He may have.
And he may have. And I just never got around to doing it. It's like, I'll get around to it. And then
get a hold of
passed away.
Merle Werkhoven would hook you right up to him. I couldn't believe he did that. Then Carson wrote me a letter, which I showed you, I think, at the house, framed on the wall. He was really impressed. He said he didn't think something like that would come out of Omaha. He was really surprised. A movie composer, Herman, would do a documentary on public radio KOS here in Omaha. He was really blown away we did that here. He said, that's something you'd think you'd hear in New York or LA. He said, I didn't expect to come out of Omaha. So we can do things here now.
We talked about, again, going back to your film events, all right? Was the first one a charity event? Does the first one raise money for a charity?
Yes, it did.
Okay. Over the years, do you have any idea how much money you've raised?
I don't know. It's got to be, I think, between $250,000 at least or more, maybe $500,000. It's been a lot. That's a lot of people. We have over 50,000 people go to these events. We figured out all the tickets we sold. That's a lot of people.
I've been on the board of a number of
I remember you
charitable fundraising.
ALS.
Charitable fundraising event organization that over the years. And there's always, how do we raise money? Come up with new ways to raise money. The golf tournaments were big for a while. That sort of went away. Then you try, how about the walkathons and the 5Ks and everything? And you had just an incredibly unique way of doing this to raise the money for the charities.
It just happened that way. I didn't plan it. It just fell in its place. I didn't do anything. It just came to me.
And it's not just one charity. It's like
I've done probably 15 different charities.
Yeah.
Over the last 32 years.
So you go with that. I got a few more questions for you, but before I do that, I want to one more time remind people about Havana Garage in the Old Market. Havana Garage. Now, you know what? I know you say, well, it's a cigar bar. Yeah, it is a cigar bar, but it's so much more than that. You don't have to be a cigar lover to still enjoy the aroma of a good cigar, to still enjoy the atmosphere, the leather chairs, and have a good cocktail, maybe a nice scotch, a nice single malt scotch, and just sort of relax and unwind and let all the pressures of the day just sort of float away. This time of year, too, the Old Market where the weather is still nice, you can sit outside there on the patio a little bit and just sort of unwind. Tell them Becca sent you when you stop by. But yeah, do it, okay? When you're in the Old Market or in the vicinity, stop by the Havana Garage. Tell them you heard about it on the Becca's Talking podcast. So,
in fact, see the Havana Garage. I was there once with my friend and sponsor, one of my movie event sponsors, Jerry Grass. Went down there and he had me toke on a few cigars down there on the patio. So I can tie into that too for you. It's a beautiful place.
I would imagine that the Havana Garage would be a good place to bring some of these stars to maybe want to have a cocktail afterwards or something like that. That'd be a good place to do that.
We sat up front there on a late summer evening. And he had me toking a few cigar stogies with him. And Jerry Grass, great guy, one of my major sponsors, wonderful person, from a hometown too, that I'm from, Nebraska City, our hometown. And he had me go down to the Havana Garage. So I have a connection there for you with your sponsor.
There we go.
Small world, huh?
Hey, an unpaid endorsement right there. So we talked a little bit about the streaming and all of that. Where does this go? In other words, are there movies being made today that 50 years from now, people are going to look back and say, wow, what a classic?
Not as much as it was 50 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't see that.
Is that also because...
There'll be a few exceptions, though.
Yeah.
I think, like you said, the Oppenheimer, that will be a classic.
Yeah.
I think down the road, people will look back at that and say, what an amazing movie. Phone okay?
I just... Turn off, ladies and gentlemen, when you're doing a podcast, turn off your phone, okay? A little pro tip from me to you. When you do a podcast, turn off the phone. But part of that is also the fact that there's just so much product out there now that it's hard to say, to focus on something.
There were more films made back in the 30s and 40s than there are today.
Really?
Actually, films, there were. But there's more television and streaming, like you said now, more TV shows and limited series they have now, they call them. And there's a dearth of entertainment because people, they're they're almost inundated with it. What do you pick to choose to watch? You only have so many hours a day you can do anything.
Yeah.
So what do you choose to watch? So it's really hard to kind of carve a niche to get your name out there, your show out there. There are those that do make it. You hear about it because they gain notoriety and fame, and a following. But there's so many good ones that don't get a chance. They're shown once and disappear, which is sad because they don't get a chance to maybe establish themselves and maybe go on, especially limited series you see on TV now, especially streaming.
Right.
That's bigger now than ever. It's almost destroyed network TV for the fall. It always had a big deal when we were kids, the fall season. It doesn't mean crap anymore.
No, you're right. There's not so much that big premiere week and all that, but
when we were kids, NBC, CBS, NBC week they used to call it.
It
it was a big deal then.
And I mean, and they still do it. But you're right. But
Nothing like it was.
the shows they don't give. And we're talking about TV now more than movies, but they don't give these TV shows a chance to develop. Seinfeld stunk for the first year, right? I mean, the ratings were not good. They came back, I think, like during summer reruns and got a following, and then
same thing with Frasier.
Yeah, Frasier was the same way.
That's a great show, but it took a long time to get it grab hold of the lives, and then it went on for 10 years. So.
Yeah, but you don't have that.
Don't give them a chance.
Don't have that opportunity anymore. I mean, if your show doesn't make it right away,
you're gone.
Yeah. It's
same thing with a lot of movies too. If a movie doesn't make enough money at the box office the first weekend, it's kicked out. And sometimes in the old days you could build up reputation. You can build up. They called it legs. They get longer legs. They get a following, word of mouth. That's the best advertising. This is a good movie. You should see it. Same thing with TV, I guess, for the most part too.
Yeah, word of mouth is always
always better.
People say, "Hey, have you seen it?" Because that's what happens. And now we're getting maybe a little bit different area here, but I think one of the we talk about how divided we are as a country.
Oh God!
I think one of the reasons that is because we don't have the same shared experiences anymore. I mean, it used to be like everybody would watch The Tonight Show, or a large portion would, or Seinfeld, or Ed Sullivan way back in the day, or whatever. I mean, when the Beatles came, boy, that was a big event.
Big deal.
Well, now there's a lot of very talented artists out there, but no show out there is going to make the impact.
Showcase them.
Yeah, the way that the Beatles were on the Ed Sullivan Show. And so we're all doing different stuff. People are like, hey, are you watching such and such a show? Yeah, I am. You are? Yeah, I am. I just finished the season. Oh, I'm only on episode 3. Don't tell me about it.
Right,
And so you don't even have that conversation you can have with people like you used to be able to have at the water cooler.
Right. It was a communal thing. You saw it at the same time. People saw the same show the same night.
Yeah.
Now, like HBO's got that long series. I never cared for it. It was called that medieval series. I forgot the name of it now.
Oh, Game of Thrones.
Yeah, that turned me off.
I never saw it. Yeah,
I didn't like it. But it's very dark and oppressive. That's the thing I don't get. I don't get now. A lot of films and TV shows are very dark, oppressive, angst, violent, and why not just cut your throat? Why bother living? Kind of shows. That's what I call them because they're so, nihilistic, just pointless.
Right.
Very depressing. Putting your head in a garbage can kind of a show.
And again, it was so many special effects and stuff. It was all
It's Spielberg said, he goes, CGI's got to come to an end pretty soon because we're going too far with it. It's become now there's more special effects to a 30-second TV commercial than there was in most feature films 50 years ago. Couldn't even compare it to what they do on TV commercials for the visual effects because it's become mundane.
What about AI in movies?
Same thing.
Yeah.
It's becoming mundane. You're making that what was once special is now becoming mundane, becoming everyday.
Yeah.
It's just sad.
But we've got you around to help remind us of
the fun classics.
The fun classics, the glory days of Hollywood movies.
Having great entertainment, fun entertainment.
Okay, so we've run through some of the movies we've done. Let's see. So you've done The Godfather, you've done American Werewolf in London, you've done Animal House, you've done To Kill a Mockingbird,
Raiders
of the Lost Ark, yeah.
American Graffiti, The Miracle Worker had Patty Duke here. And General Patton's son came for that, not Hollywood. It was real history, unique thing.
Do you ever say, "Oh, I really like to show this movie, but there's nobody alive anymore"?
Yeah. That's happening. Well, King Kong was an example. 1933 King Kong, but Ray Harryhausen came back and Ray Bradbury because they were children at the time that movie came out and inspired them. So that made a good fit. They were inspired by that film. Of course, they became famous people themselves. So it helped me make it a big deal. Because they're all, Fay Ray was still alive, but she was 94 years old. I wasn't going to fly her back here. I actually talked to Fay Ray on the phone once.
Yeah?
The real Fay Ray. It was surreal. So she said, I don't like to travel anymore, Bruce. Otherwise, I'd come back and join you and the boys. She called Ray Harryhausen, Ray Bradbury the boys. Because when she knew them in the 30s, they were kids.
Yeah. God, yeah. Boy, that is something, the old Hollywood Hollywood classics like that, like a Fay Ray, you know.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And for those that don't know, Fay Ray was the beauty that King Kong had on the
Empire State
Building. Yeah.
The most iconic film of all time.
Yeah.
In the top 5 for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a movie that still holds up today. Special effects might be a little bit.
It's 91 years old, but people still watch it because it's a great movie. At the Indian Hills on that giant curved screen, it was breathtaking. It's like 3-dimensional.
Yeah.
Like never seeing it for the first time. You never saw it before. Just amazing.
Well, I've always enjoyed talking movies with you over the years. You know,
we could talk for hours.
We've had some great conversations about it and just show business in general and how it's changed over the years and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Some for the better, some for the worse. You know.
Oh yeah.
But and then May 17th is your next event.
That's if we survive the election coming up. Who knows, Tom?
Oh, jeez. Yeah. You just said something that made me think. Okay, going back to the old days of when like the movies were being censored and stuff.
Oh yeah.
You know, you look at some of these movies that, you know, the Catholic Church said. I remember being a kid growing up in the
Legion
church.
of Decency.
Yeah, you know, during the church, and in the bulletin every Sunday it would have, you know, okay, these movies are okay, these movies are not okay. Yeah, you know,
That doesn't exist anymore.
you know, and it's not like that. But the government, and back with J. Edgar Hoover, that the government put a lot of pressure on Hollywood to, you know, tell the right story, right?
The Hayes Code.
Yeah.
Will Hayes.
Yeah.
Censor.
And of course the blacklisting of the writers.
Yeah, and the strange thing about that, though, it wasn't the right thing to do, but there were people out there who should not have been in films because they were very propagandistic, and they later admitted they were. Elia Kazan was one who was part of that group and admitted they were, but he dropped out of it and didn't do it anymore.
Yeah.
He named names, but he was a member of that group himself. But they're putting propaganda into the stories, which is true. Just don't try to rewrite history. It really did happen. It was wrong the way they treated him, though.
Well, propaganda works both ways.
It does.
Because everyone also put in propaganda. The movie Reefer Madness comes to mind.
Right.
Which was a propaganda movie.
In a way, yeah.
It has marijuana in that, but
Beware, this is what it'll do to you.
yeah, and there's some people that still think that's what happens, but that's another story for another day. Bruce, like I said, always enjoyed talking with you, and
It's a lot of fun.
I appreciate your time. Thanks for taking time out of this.
Thanks for having me here.
And I look forward to May 17th. Right?
We'll see what happens.
May
If we
17th,
survive.
if we survive the election, May 17th, out at the Omaha Community Playhouse. The next episode of whatever
Next
classic
chapter
movie
in the classic film
Yeah.
series, huh?
Yeah.
We'll see.
All right. Thank you very much. By the way,
Thanks, Tom.
podcast brought to you by Havana Garage in the Old Market, where you always want to have a nice time. Just a great place to go and relax. Whether you smoke a cigar or not, great place to go and relax. I want to thank you for watching this. I want to thank you for telling your friends about it. We got some great guests lined up that we're going to have here we always have great guests. We have some other great guests coming up
In the near future.
in the future. So check with us every Tuesday morning, 10 a.m. A new episode is coming out. Make sure you like, subscribe, all that stuff, and then we'll see you next time on Becca's Talking. Bye, y'all.